We all set? Okay, let's call this meeting to order. Roll call, I guess.
Weir,
Right.
Casanello,
Here.
Pater. Here. Larson,
Here.
Schneider.
Here.
Shannon, Morris.
Okay, let's go right on into the, I don't have an agenda. I don't have an agenda. Let me pull it up first.
In the work session.
Okay, let's go right into the work session then. Start with the 2022 budget.
Who's presenting?
Good evening, Council. In this work session, I'm just following up with the minor change, well, not minor, but the only change I really made was the addition of, on the administrative side, the addition of those funds for wages, which triggered an increase in FICA and VRS. You would see that in administration section, which would be page
Line number?
page 3, line number 121101, and the affected ones will be 1211-004, 1211-005. So those were just adjusted to accommodate that additional 20,000 increase on the wages for administrative side. The one note I do have is Councilman Morris had reached out. I was going to share with y'all that he was requesting if we can produce a separate overtime line item specifically for training when it comes to the police department. In the past, any overtime is just categorized as overtime, even if it is due to training. He wanted to discuss the fact that maybe making a separate line item with an additional 5,000 dedicated just to overtime wages that could be gained by officers due to their participation on training. In reviewing it, we could, but I had suggested why not take 5,000 out of the premium if that's what he really wants to do, and just split it. So leave 15,000 as overtime premium, and then create a $5,000 line item specifically for training. But the other option is also to keep it the same. What I can do is create another line item that would be dedicated just for training, for tracking purposes, but it would still come out of the overtime, which is right now currently at 20,000 for the officers. I just wanted to put it out there just because I know he's not here, so he asked me to bring it up, and so you guys can all discuss it.
For my 2 cents, I'm not really inclined to create another line item for that. Overtime is overtime is overtime. It's a catch-all anyway.
What you're showing separate from what's here?
Oh, no, I'm sorry. What I have on the screen is exactly what you guys have there.
Okay.
It's just that I figured it'd be easier for you guys to follow, to
Okay.
have a hard copy in front of you.
Mr. Mayor, if I may ask.
Go ahead.
So on that, so I'd asked, I think about a month or so ago, about, spoken to a couple of you about comp time for the police officers. Have there been any time to discuss that, or exchange time, I guess, or?
That would be a personnel policy item
Okay.
that would need to be addressed.
Okay.
And you also have to have the staff to be able to allow the officers time off. So that's why this probably budgetarily, it would help with overtime if they were given, 1.5 hours of comp time instead of paid time and a half. So it would help with reducing the overtime line item. However, if you don't have the staff to allow that person to take time off, we're not at that place yet. So hopefully, I know we have with 2 conditional offers out, so hopefully we can get back and get up to full steam, and then we can really dive into that and kind of see how the numbers would work.
Okay.
But until then, it's kind of hard to plan on doing a comp time when you don't have the staff to facilitate it.
Understood, but we've sort of anticipated in the budget where if we wanted to do that later on, once we're fully staffed, we have the capacity to address it.
So then that would allow for more overtime essentially, because then officers wouldn't get paid, they could be paid or get that comp time, so that would actually reduce that line item, so that would free up some money to do that training.
Okay.
So that's true.
Great, thanks, appreciate it.
And council, I apologize, I do have to correct myself. The other update that we did do on this budget, if you look on, and once again, on the police department side, line item 31,138, Councilman Morris had requested an additional 5,000 when it comes to training. So I did input that number there. What he was asking for actually was 4,000 in overtime, additional overtime. So I want to correct that. I just noticed that as I was looking through the report. With the addition of the 5,000 for training, it would increase it from 5,000 to 10,000.
Then we also have another update. Today, I reached out to the candidate for the DMV Select position, the individual that had 7 years' experience with the Manassas Customer Service Center, and we were able to bring her in a little bit under what we originally anticipated. So without objection, I'm going to send that offer letter tomorrow for $44,500 with the option after a 6-month evaluation to increase salary. So we will have to recalculate this, but also speaking with that, because of the fact that we need that employee here for training and getting the office set up, they will start June 14th. So there will be some funds that we'll use from part-time wages that'll get rolled over into full-time admin, because it'll only be admin for the 2 weeks right before we start. But after hearing everything from DMV and training and all the background checks and things that we need to get done, we need that individual here before just the first day of the year. So that will be a fourth quarter amendment we'll take care of, and Roberto and I will have to amend that. It is slight, but it is still some changes that will need to happen.
Okay, so I have a question, Mr. Mayor. So let's just talk about that DMV Select for a minute. So you're saying 44.5, that's the all-in number?
Correct.
Or including fringe, everything?
No, that is the salary.
That's
So
the salary.
We had attributed 48,000 for that position.
Right, and that was a 2/3, 1/3?
Correct.
Because
So
you're anticipating,
some admin work, but
Right.
predominant DMV work.
Okay.
So we just need to correct that 1/3, 2/3 with the benefits, because all that's going to come down a little bit.
right, okay. Now, I just want to go back to the PD for a second, relative to Councilman Morris. So he did ask for the 5,000 additional for training. We've guys see that in there. And he's good with that?
I believe so. From the last email I was a part of, I believe that, yes, that's what he was good with. But like I stated, he also then asked for an additional 4,000 for overtime training. Any overtime that could be done due to any overtime gained by the officers due to being in a training session or seminar, or having to certify, which will cause them to go into overtime.
I think we're good where we're at with the OT.
Yeah, we're talking about 20?
Yeah.
And that's something that I did talk
This
with.
year's is artificially inflated, so.
Yeah.
Well, and that is something that I talked with Sergeant Davis about. How often, when the police department was fully staffed, did training cause him personally to go into overtime? And he stated that it wasn't a regular basis. Normally, it was done on your trains, when you were supposed to be there, like during day shift, you would knock out training. So scheduling can address some of these training times, because if you do it on your scheduled day where the supervisor, police chief do patrol, then it allows that officer, whether it's annual firearms training or something like that. So I think with the scheduling, he felt that they could get it done. And then if it was, training did cause overtime, there was, 20,000 in there to allow for that.
There is a system set up for tracking what overtime is, training versus shift.
So this year, due to Councilman Morris's question, I will go ahead and create a line item to be able to track it a lot cleaner when it's specifically done due to training. So I will be able to provide that information to council.
So if we can just go back for a second on the revenue side. Are there any other adjustments that we talked about that we have to make?
I got a whole bunch of them.
Oh, okay. All right, so we'll talk about that in a minute then, I guess. You know, I got a little heart attack looking at this for a second. Not from what you've done, but when I looked at the attorneys year-to-date, I got a little bit of a pause in my chest. So the question is, do we think we can rationally go to that number for next year? What's our thinking here? I mean, we put down 65, that was a $5,000 cut. Do we rationally think that we can keep it to 65?
Well, I'll be blunt. Presuming that we don't have to have an investigation of the police department again, and presuming that we don't have some strange land use bills that are quite frankly a relic of a past administration, in my view, at minimum, that chops $60,000 to $70,000 out of what we've paid this year. So if we're not anticipating that cost or those types of costs for literally cleaning up the messes of the past, then yeah, I think we can reach that. But I think if you look at that, if you look at the current number of 108,642, and then you back out the cost of the investigation,
Right.
the cost of the Bean property proceedings, the cost of the QBE proceedings, then I think we're down mid-40s, 50. It's my guess.
Optimistically.
To answer your question, Councilman Passanello, yes. Just like Councilman Weir said, there were, between the investigation, assist with the purchase of private property, with the land use BZA item as well, there were several items this year that are not things that you can really budget for. They just came up and we had to handle. So I think budgetarily, what we can anticipate between meetings and the regular duties that we are expected to complete, yes, I think 65,000 is an achievable goal. However, if we have different things come up that we need to handle
We
that
make
are
adjustments.
legal intensive, we will need to make adjustments.
Yeah, I'm kind of just hemming and hawing here myself. I know. I mean, we'll make the adjustments as necessary, but, I mean,
Do you want to bump it back to 70?
well, I'm wondering if, because I'm thinking about the writ of certiorari that we have, right? We haven't heard back from on the Bean property, right? He submitted a
I
writ.
am presuming that they failed to file.
I will get an update on Wednesday, but I do not have any update.
Okay.
as
I
of
Well,
mean,
then-
that's only been,
He had his attorney report.
Yeah.
I
Okay,
mean, as it
great.
stands, I mean, that's the least
I know.
cost-intensive thing, because that's under 6,000 or 7,000, isn't it? All in?
I don't know. I don't know where that's going. It's just,
Well, just to do quick math here, if we had removed the legal general matters that had to do with the PD situation, we would have been around the 50. Councilman Ware had stated. One thing I also would like to remind you is, if you see the trend in the past, up to this year, we were not really doing the pass-through, and yet we were still within that 72. The last year's numbers were also skewed just for the simple fact it had a lot to do with COVID. With the COVID restrictions, we need to get legal counseling on how to handle that. But prior years, as you can see, the trend was we were very well to meet our budget. Now with this year and going forward with the whole pass-through, a lot of the costs that contractors and residents have to pay for, it would help us as well.
If it'll make you feel better, we can bump it back up to 70, because I'm gonna recoup it elsewhere.
Yeah, well, I think we need to, because I think we're gonna have to deal with new issues such as the tot tax and any type of bed, bed and breakfast places that pop up on the internet.
70, everybody? So now we're minus
Hey,
$5,000.
Roberto wants to jump in.
No, and if council is okay with this, what I'll do is I'll input these numbers. It may not balance tonight. We'll get it rebalanced if we have to, but okay. Well, just making sure you guys understand that. I'll go ahead and change it out on the fly as we're going now to get this.
It
Well,
will,
I mean, we
it will definitely balance tonight.
I mean, we can think about it. I'm concerned about some additional, listen, I'm all for stretch goals. Absolutely. I mean,
Yeah, I don't know. It is what it is.
and I understand where Councilman Morris is coming from on this issue, because it's better to have that expectation rather than, I guess, add more, for lack of a better term. The thing I'm concerned about is that, and of course, I'm not sure if we've factored in the additional increase, whether we're going to see that additional increase.
So basically, with the amendment of how the town council will administer the meetings, probably right after the agenda items are taken care of and it's getting ready to be liaison reports and council member time, if you guys basically just release Martin, that should save quite a bit of time as well, especially when we're talking about 12 meetings a year. So I think that with the increase in the cost, that's where if we release him 30, 45 minutes early each meeting, that would address a
Let's
substantial
be
amount.
safe and put it back up to 70 and just live with it.
That's where my gut is.
Okay. So now we're minus 5,000.
All right, let's see where we go. Anybody else have any thoughts on that?
On the police department line items, or no?
No, the
Attorney.
attorney fees.
So I do have one more item for the salaries and wages for the police department. No, go down, right there. So we do still have the $425,000, which increases a 3% COLA for those officers. That also includes, I know I've talked to some of you, maybe not all of you, but that includes an increase for Burgoon to bring him into what the officers that have been offered the conditional offer letter, bring him in there. That's something that Jake and I did do. We indicated that on May 1st, we were going to increase his salary because we offered the conditional letters to those officers that week. So that's something that will be in front of council to basically change his salary effective May 1st. So that'll be in front of y'all June, just because we didn't feel that we needed to wait till July and have Burgoon getting paid less than the officers that had been provided a conditional offer letter. So that's something that you will see in June to address the rest of this fiscal year. It won't affect the FY21 fiscal year, so that's why we went ahead and offered it, and then you guys can make the official vote on June. And then the salaries and wages for the regular pay, that will incorporate basically everybody else, because now it's really just Jake and Officer Burgoon that would be the ones getting the COLA. So with him being addressed, then we would need to discuss Jake's pay, which we can deal with at a different time. But I just wanted that to be pointed out to you guys so you know that.
Could you expand briefly on Burgoon and the failure to evaluate and bump his pay, please?
Yes, so Officer Burgoon was hired, believe April 1st of 2020. So it was either towards the end of March or beginning of April, and according to the personnel policy, after a 6-month evaluation, he was supposed to get a 4% increase, which would have brought him to right under like $20 short of 60,000. He did not get that increase, and then the other,
Evaluation done?
not to my knowledge, no, sir. And then with that as well, the officers that are getting the conditional offers go up to 65,000. And that was something that, with talking with Jake, that, Burgoon stuck it out when it was really just 2 full-time officers. And if he found out that, the other officers were getting substantially more than he was, that could have been a risk to the town, that if he would have wanted to go elsewhere. So we just felt that it was, we needed to make that offer and let him know that was the intent.
He's got more or equivalent combined years of service as those other guys, correct?
Yes, he is very comparable to those officers.
All right.
Okay, so I think that makes sense. It sounds like it makes sense. He shouldn't be making less than a new hire. I agree with that. What kind of a hit are we talking about to the budget this year on that?
None. It'll all be incorporated in the salary savings from the other officers.
Got it.
And it's already budgeted for next year, so it doesn't impact the bottom line for next year.
Exactly.
So does that equals a 4% increase for him, or is it higher than that? What's
So-
the equivalence?
So if you gave him the 4% that he deserved in July, I think it was July, and then it would have been another 3%. It's a little bit more than that, but since we're bringing those new officers in.
Right, okay.
But what we did is, because we took it as 6 full-time officers using the previous officers' salaries, basically for all those positions, we increased it a 3% cost of living increase, because we were paying our officers a little bit lower than where other localities were. So with that, really, we used the bulk amount. And with that, we would be able to offer the majority of the officers between 60 and 65,000. And then the police chief would still be able to come in, which we advertised, from 85 to 95. So this would allow all but the majority of the officers to be at 64,000, and then the chief be at 95, and then the supervisor be at 75,000. So we've got it pretty well balanced, I think. So that's how we ended up with the salary and wages range. So that's the, and this is based on, of course, you guys knew that we were advertising for the amounts, right around between 60 to 65,000 for qualified officers. The police chief position was 85 to 95,000. This isn't new, but I just wanted to try and lay all of it out, how we kind of came to these numbers, and then using that to kind of have an equitable, the officers that are relatively equitable.
Good. No, I think, he stuck with us. We should stick with him. So I agree.
And that'll be before you guys in the June regular meeting.
Right. Okay, good.
One thing I want to note, make a comment on, is that please remember that these numbers, especially in the PD, for the health insurance, considered for all new hires to have full family plans. Once we officially have our new hires, our new officers here, if they choose a plan that's either single or dual, this will decrease. So we would probably address it in our first quarter amendment in the following budget. But just wanted to make sure you guys
Right.
understand that if there is a decrease, it will probably be coming because of that when it comes to the police departments, depending what health insurance they.
Right.
they
You
choose.
budgeted the worst-case scenario.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay. That makes sense.
And then before we talk about revenue, did you guys want to talk about the CIP expenses? Because I do have some rough numbers from Katie about some of the larger projects.
Save that for the end,
Okay.
rather than get wrapped around the axle now. Because then at least at the end, we'll know how much we've got.
That's fair enough.
Give me a second. Steve's asking if where we are in the discussion.
All right, you want to go?
till he's done.
Where we at
Okay.
next, I apologize. He was asking where we are on the agenda, I just said we're still working through it, so.
All right, I've got some revenue suggestions. Go to business license tax. I would suggest bumping that to 200,000, which is an increase of 18,500 based on the actuals. Any heartburn on that?
No, I believe we can reach it. As you all may know by now, the reason why we reduced this, Chris and I felt, with COVID, we were unsure, but as you can see, the actuals now, it seems that businesses
And we
are
have,
bouncing back.
and that's not including full collections, correct?
No, we do have a few that were still out there, correct.
What do we anticipate? Anything? Do we have any numbers in your mind that you anticipate coming in additional?
Not really, because all the major players are in. It's just some of the smaller businesses and newer businesses.
Any opposition to raising it to 200?
Well, it looks like we got 219 and we got 233 the year before COVID.
Yeah.
200 this year.
I was being conservative and bumping it to 200.
And this doesn't take into account what, if there are other development?
Yeah.
Oh, correct. This does not take into account the hotel, which is anticipated to open early
Ferrando.
2022. This does not take into account Parandos. There's some other businesses that have opened. There's a spin shop that's sharing some locations with Next Level Fitness. So yeah, we've got some more businesses that are open that this does not take into account.
Yeah, and this number was dropped in the spring of last year, wasn't it, because of COVID?
Correct. That's
So we're bringing it back to a normal number, projection.
correct.
Okay, I have no objection to that.
No other objections?
I'm sorry, 200 for which line item?
Business license.
312002. Next line down, cigarette tax dropped to 125
Yeah, that's a problem.
for a number of reasons.
Yes. Roberto, were you confident in that number, or?
Yes, because especially seeing the numbers now, the 111 is as of April,
Okay.
April 1st or April 30th?
April 30th.
Okay.
So we still have 2 more months. I think we will reach it, the 135 that we have budgeted may come short by a couple thousand, but not by much. And
You
it is
see it
trending back.
continuing to drop
Yeah.
year over year, as a regressive tax usually does.
Right.
So, excuse me, Councilman, rather than 10,000, just want to drop it, Roberto, will be okay to drop it to 130? 130?
I actually would have to agree by 10,000, just because also the county are
Okay.
also going to have some tax charges, so I don't know how it's going to affect it.
What was that about the county?
The county is instituting a cigarette tax.
Cigarette tax as well now, at 40 cents per carton.
And what is ours now? Do you remember? What did we charge?
Ours is 75 cents.
75 cents. But they don't charge right now.
Correct.
Not right now, but as of July, they will.
So I wonder if that would have an impact the opposite way. And
We're
instead,
charging more. I
We're
don't think,
still
I don't think it's going to have a substantive impact at all. But the way what I've been told is, or what I've read, I should say, is that this year was an anomaly and you had a slight actual uptick in cigarette usage simply because everybody was home and not locked in their office where they couldn't smoke and having to go out to the, smoking areas outside. But that has artificially increased, and even with that increase, it's dropped. So I'm pretty confident in the 125.
And Councilman Schneider, we are part of the cigarette board, tax board. They have been seeing a 5% decrease every year. With the new county, the counties being able to tax the cigarettes too, they are just unsure. And like Mr. Councilman Ware stated, that with COVID, it kind of skewed a lot of the numbers as well.
Okay. As long as you guys align, I'm fine with that, so, thanks.
okay, so we're a net 8,000 so far.
No, because I included the 5,000.
Oh, okay.
We're a
So
net
we're net
3,500.
Yeah, okay. I'm with you.
Meals tax, what are you projecting year end for us?
So what's the
Current fiscal year.
628? Is that the end of March?
So the 628,454 is actually up to the month of March. So we still need to collect, this month we will be collecting April, then we have May and June. June will be collected in July. There has been an increase all throughout the year. I think the only month that we were below the expected threshold was February, but that was expected. It bounced right back up in March. So
And again, the target was reduced for COVID.
correct. It was reduced, and those.
I was
numbers-
just curious, I wasn't suggesting a change, I'm just curious.
Well, we're showing an increase anyway, aren't we?
Yeah, we are. And then the line above that, consumer utility tax, are we gonna hit that, or is this one of those years where,
Slow rolling.
because of usage, we're not gonna make it? I don't know.
Well, it seems to be
Um,
decreasing too.
consumer. I don't know. I can look back into it and I can have it answered back for you at Thursday's meeting.
I mean, what I'm looking at is coming in right about somewhere in the neighborhood of 155, 158, so I'm comfortable, I'm fine with leaving it there, I'm just curious.
Yeah, I certainly wouldn't increase it.
And to go back to the question, conservatively, I think we should be around the 790 number by meals tax by the end of the year this year.
Okay.
And that's being conservative on the numbers.
I think it was giving us an update on meals tax.
Yeah, so I wouldn't make a change there.
I would, well, no, I won't.
Sales receipts?
Application fees, personally, I would drop that down to 2,000. Unless you foresee us getting a whole bunch of application fees.
Well, I will leave that to your to answer.
Or was this year an anomaly?
One second, where do you want the land use permit?
That would fall on other permits.
So, one of the things to keep in mind is, every time we have a new business come in, or there's a change in tenant, a relocation, they do have to pay a $50 commercial application fee. I would feel comfortable dropping it to probably 2,500, 2,000. range is-
25 works for me.
Okay.
Any objection?
Nope.
So that's minus 2,000.
We're keeping score.
Yeah, I'm keeping score. Motor vehicle licenses.
So council, I'm sure you all may know, but, you know, the town is probably one of the only towns that doesn't have an annual vehicle decal fee.
Yeah.
We have it that once you are a resident, you come in, you pay the one-time fee of 15, which is actually very minimal compared to our local
Yep.
neighbors. So this number, if you would like to see it reduced, I would be okay with, just because it is hard to gauge how, you know, how many residents are
New
going to come back.
vehicles are going to come
Yeah,
in.
exactly.
I would suggest 1,000. I know this is nitpicking, but I just want to get it right.
Just need to revisit it next year with the residents that are coming in. So,
All right, so how many cars do we think?
Are we looking at raising that from 15 to something, Bob, or?
No, dropping the revenue projection.
Got it, got it.
I mean, I think 1,000 would be fine, just because we don't know how many people are gonna move in, because the Van Meter homes very well may not be under occupancy.
yeah.
Yeah, so,
Well,
in future years, when we come back next year, we'll probably need to revisit a higher amount.
At 1,000, that's 66 new vehicles.
so I mean,
That's easy.
That's easy to attain.
Yeah.
And if we, and in $15 increments, you know.
Does anybody know how 2019 actuals, you know, why that anomaly?
736.50?
No, 2285. Am I looking at the right thing?
Yeah.
That was the video
That was the
year.
video year.
That was the video year.
The ticket spree at 3:30 a.m.?
Oh, okay. Never mind.
You've already reduced VACO and interest.
So let's go, before you jump to that,
Yeah.
this is something we probably need to revisit later, but we'd probably at some point need to revisit our permit and planning fees, just to make sure that they were capturing the right amounts, but that's for a later date. So just want to, that is not on our priority list, but probably needs to be put on there at some point, revisiting our fees and our pass-through fees.
I would suggest it's going to bump up next year too because of the construction that's underway, so.
Yep, so just placeholder for later. That's fine where it's at.
And I think that's all I've got on the revenue side.
So what's your number?
We're at plus 600. After all that manipulation. Is that correct, Roberto? All right.
Yes. Okay, you guys close it.
And we've,
That's all I've got on the revenue
I
side.
need to leave for a minute, go grab a cart.
10-minute recess, right?
No, no, it's 7 recess, you guys are good. So that's it. Mr. Mayor, I need to leave for about 10 minutes. If we could wait for the CIP till I get back, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah.
Yep, I'll be right back. Thank you. Excuse me.
as soon as Marchand comes back, we'll say, oh, we're done.
We'll adjourn while he's gone.
All right. Next. Anything else?
I'm done on the revenue side unless somebody else has something.
There was one.
One other item that I don't know if council would like to discuss, but it's the sales tax receipts.
Yes, I would like to discuss that, thank
Did
you.
we just do
I
that?
thought somebody had mentioned that.
I thought we did say that,
No,
didn't
we
we?
didn't.
No, we passed right over that one.
Did I skip over that?
What were you thinking?
I did question that, didn't I?
No, sir.
I mean, because that
Let me redo
number,
my math.
now, that number reflects tardy payments, right? They continue to be tardy?
No, the sales tax receipts actually the county collects and gives back to us. Yeah, so
Is
it's
that
not
through
controlled by
April or
us.
through March?
That's what I'm gonna verify right now. I want to say that it's up through
March?
February. but-
Yeah.
February?
Yeah.
That's what I mean by tardy.
Is that the 139, 376?
That's the projected, yeah.
Okay,
If you look at the actual, we're at 99 for the year.
okay.
And the question is, what would it be today, and where are we going to end up?
Sure.
That's what Roberto's going to check now, because if it is February, we're actually trending towards close to 150.
Right.
But we will see if it's February or March. 'cause
No, if it's February, we're pretty much right on track. Maybe a grand or two over, probably around 141.
We have any delinquent?
No way of knowing.
Sales tax, so sales tax is collected by the county, and then it's disseminated to us. Yeah, but it is a couple months behind.
Okay.
Again, before you go there, that was also one that was adjusted because of COVID,
Yes.
I think, right?
Yeah.
What was it, 5%, whatever it was?
Yeah, so the adjustment happened when Chris and I were getting the opportunity to review this current budget one more time. So we were able to reduce it by 6% on some of the revenues that we felt may take a hit. Sales tax, meals tax, and business, the B polls were the main ones. To address the sales tax receipts, this is up for collections up to February,
Through February or up to February?
February 28th, so the month of February.
March, April, May, June. Still needs to be collected?
Yes. And as of February, we were 9.9 in the positive of what we should be budget-wise.
So you'd be looking at 148-ish, 148.6, somewhere in there.
So we potentially could increase it another 10,000 if we were to hold steady.
No,
Or 5,000 if you feel safer. Because that's the other
I'd
thing.
feel good at 145, I think.
That's additional 6. What were you projecting for the end of the year? 140?
148, something like that.
140.
For this current year, we budgeted 129,376.
Yeah, but what is Bob, doing the trend?
My trend is 148.6,
So we're going 145, you said?
145 for next year.
Yeah, and I think 145 is a good number, also because, not only because of the trending and the actuals so far year-to-date, but I think there's going to be a lot of pent-up demand that's going to be satisfied over the next year, especially with the rescue plan and additional money in people's pockets. So,
Things are opening up, too.
Yeah.
They're going to start opening up more and more now, so
yeah.
good
So
point.
if we make that adjustment, then we're net 62.24 plus.
Shaking cushions.
Yeah.
Shaking cushions, baby.
I thought,
That is correct.
I must have skipped over that one, 'cause I had it marked.
I was wondering, I said, wait a
I
minute.
had it marked with a question mark.
All right.
Which takes us to the expenditure side. I don't think I have anything left on the expenditure side, surprisingly enough.
And you went through the adjustments earlier.
Yeah, we went through them. After those adjustments, I don't have anything left.
DMV select.
I can justify everything that's left that I see, at least in my mind.
I keep forgetting.
I don't have any real heartburn over anything.
So
Emily, didn't you want something moved for next year? With-
seed money.
Carry over event money that was not being used directly into the events line item.
Right.
Suggestions on how to accommodate that? Or just leave it be and,
So what I would do, yeah, I'll leave it be, but what I'll do is that, as of June 30th, I'll move it to a deferred account, adjust it, so we are able to pull what's left over.
carryover number,
And
you'll
then
have carryover
exactly.
minus,
And then as of July 1st, she'll start with, say if it's 12,000 out of the 20, she'll start with 12,000.
and we just handle that in the first quarter budget amendment?
You don't have to do anything, actually, just as long as the.
Just mark the carryover fund?
Yes, market carryover, that's all.
Okay.
As long as the budget is 20,000, which I believe is what we would do. Emily?
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
I can go home now. I'm done.
Okay, and then what Roberto and I just did is with the DMV Select position coming in a little bit lower, we actually just amended it. So the DMV Select, the 2/3 dropped like about $3,000, and then the salaries and wages for admin drops about $1,100. So that opened up another and we will have to do the FICA and taxes and stuff, but that's going to take a little more calculation. So I just.
So where are we at plus minus now? Because I'm not going to try and add all that together.
8.
We should be to the positive, right?
11,609. Yes,
I like shaking the cushions.
which we just throw in a capital improvement.
Yeah, we can, sure can.
Sure.
Any objections?
Nope. But just go back to the DMV Select. So you're saying that two-third portion would be 3,600? Is that what you were saying?
The reduction from the
230?
48 to the, yes, it was a reduction in, it was, instead of, sorry.
It's 33.6, if I'm reading it right.
Yeah, so what, it's 33.6 there, it dropped to 29, go up to the DMV that we just changed.
Thanks.
Chris, I can't see that from here, but,
So it dropped to 29,370.
okay. And then thank you, Roberto, thank you. I'm old, but, you know. Okay, and that's 335 on top.
And you'll fine tune that and.
Correct.
Correct.
Any other change that pops out of the couch when you're doing that, just pump it into CIP?
Okay.
Any objections to that?
No objection to that.
Makes sense.
Now we'll actually have money to build something.
Now, that is the question, what to build.
Well, we're about to get to that since Marchand's back.
That's right.
Thank you very much. Supporting local business.
You guys have anything else on this one?
I mean, we pretty much hammered out expenses last time.
Yeah.
The only reason the revenue changes was because of the new projections, but
So on that, Architecture Review Board, we did add the, we appreciate you splitting up the training. We split it up between Planning Commission and the ARB. I publicly rose to the challenge to find training for the ARB. I will have not finished that yet. I will continue to find that training, but I appreciate you guys splitting the baby between the two committees. I think it'll be useful.
not a problem.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
Actually, one more, Mr. Mayor. We had talked previously about maintenance on the outhouse to the Cupcake Heaven. Chris, if you could remind me, if that were to be done, that would have to come out of maintenance monies, or would that be a separate?
No, that would come out of maintenance. So that's what, I just need to know what type of window and door would go there. So if ARB wants to have that at their next meeting and kind of give us a ballpark on the cost of that, we can move forward.
So, Mr. Mayor, council members, piggybacking on what hopefully will be that discussion about the CIP and the site improvements, wanted to go ahead and replace the boarded up windows and doors with more appropriate furnishings. But talking with the town manager, that could be as high as $10,000 to $15,000. I don't think we'll go that high, but it's sort of conservative estimate on that. But would like to have that as a line item in the maintenance portion to go ahead and get that done.
Which building?
The outbuilding behind, the small building behind Cupcake
Got it.
Heaven.
Got it.
It's on this side. There's
Yeah. Okay.
Because it would be 2 windows and 2 doors at least, correct?
correct. So
And you've got that in the current maintenance budget, correct?
Like I said, depending on the period-specific doors and windows that would be necessary, that's what would probably dictate if we could do it all at one time, or if we needed to separate it.
ARB doesn't get to put in gilded doors.
I very much doubt it's going to be it's going to be that high
They're
expense.
stained glass.
So, yes, but the town manager did mention that it could be a substantial cost depending on where we're going. So a conservative estimate was as high as 15,000, but I would hope that would not cost that much.
For 2 windows and 2 doors?
Correct.
Yeah, I would hope it wouldn't go that high.
Probably just due to styling, right?
Again, that building is an outbuilding, very utilitarian. I don't know that we would require anything that other than just sort of utilitarian to match the building. So, but yes, let's hope it doesn't cost that much. So I guess we're already in the budget. We don't need to make a concession in the budget other than just to say that's an
It's already
anticipated.
in there. It's already
request?
accounted
Okay.
for.
Thank you.
CIP?
Here we go.
So then, if we're ready to go to CIP. I did get the email from Katie, so that's where I just want to make sure that I'll let you guys know the dollar amounts. She had, these are rough estimates, but she said the town center parking lot work would be estimated at 1.25 million. Ouch. That would include earthwork, exterior improvements, utilities, installation of improvements will result in disturbing more than 2,500 square foot and require the BMP and stormwater management. The park sidewalk, this does not include the design cost, which is going to be an additional cost, but it would be $500,000. The installation of just over 500 linear feet of stamped concrete sidewalk within the right-of-way, disturbance of more than 2,500 square foot, requires the BMP and stormwater management, and costs assumed to be comparable to the pedestrian improvement project, given the similar scope.
So it's
Question.
500,000 for the engineering or for the construction?
For the construction only.
What percentage,
Is engineering.
well, no, this is just for construction, but what kind of a percentage could we throw at the design engineering on that? Based on
So
the cost.
For the pedestrian project, it was quite expensive, so.
Because
I
we
think
have,
it could range anywhere from 100 to 350,000.
Well, I mean, it doesn't
Question,
make
I'm
a
sorry.
whole lot of sense to get a quote on the construction.
This is what she did rough estimates
Yeah,
for
this
the
is
cost of the construction, because the Jefferson Street turn lane as well as the town center parking lot work already have the design.
Mm-hmm.
So I think just to compare all three of them together for the construction costs.
So,
well,
I mean,
1.5,
If I may.
I'm sorry, Kurt, we're on the same page. 1.5 million was for what again? I'm sorry.
1.25.
1.25 was for the earthwork, the exterior improvements, the curb and gutter and paving of the parking lot, and the
For-
utility relocation.
What exterior improvements?
Well, the curb and gutter,
Oh, okay, I thought you
Yeah.
meant on the building.
yeah, no, this is just the parking lot, the site work. And then the
Town
install,
center, I'm sorry, just to confirm, town center. Okay.
correct, the town center parking lot. So basically the stone dust that's back behind town hall, adding curb and gutter and paving that.
could you send that to us?
Paving the front.
And this is also, like I said, this is rough estimate, so she gave us numbers for rough estimates so we can have this conversation.
Right.
But we're continuing to work on this to get better numbers, more defined.
All right. First of all, can you send that to us?
Yes.
Okay.
We got this at 5:49
Okay,
today,
all
so
right.
by the time I would have sent it, y'all wouldn't.
All right.
So I just wanted to print it out.
Maybe you can make a copy of it, and if you can do that now, that'd be better.
Well, and that's the other thing is, Katie is working on like a full comprehensive report to have a lot of information that you guys want. I mean, I can send you this, but it's basically a couple lines. So I can send that to you and then send you the full report coming in the next week or so.
Is the full report going to break out some of these order of magnitude estimates?
Yes.
Okay. So you're saying that the town center and the Jefferson turn lane,
I haven't even gotten to the Jefferson turn lane yet.
okay, but I think I heard you say, and correct me if I'm wrong, the design's already been done?
Correct. For
Okay.
the town center parking lot and the Jefferson Street turn lane and sidewalk.
And the park sidewalk, we don't have design because we didn't include it on the last one. And of course, we have utility relocations as well, so she probably doesn't account for that, I don't think.
No, as of right now, it just has cost assumed, yeah, it just says installation of over 500 linear feet stamped concrete sidewalk within the right-of-way, disturbance of more than 2,500 square foot, requires BMP and stormwater management.
That's what we really need, because if we're gonna even think about using some of the ARP money for the stormwater aspect, we need that number, or that estimate pretty quick.
And that's what, if council would like, we can reach out to a couple engineering architecture firms, see if somebody can give us a quick quote, quick bid. It would cost X amount for us to do the stormwater and curb and gutter and sidewalk design for this. And what I would just try and do is make sure we broke down stormwater specific so that we have that stormwater infrastructure. And then we would have the sidewalk separate. So we can move forward with that if council would like, so we can try and get an idea of what that price would be to get the designs done for the park.
We don't mean that, if we don't do that, then it throws the entire CIP off in terms of timing.
We're kind of jumping around for a second. So the master plan and the site plan that was approved for this site, that also included the building expansion, correct?
To my knowledge,
Okay, so,
the plan did, but the the 1.5 million.
Okay.
So
So the
Is it
one,
1.5 or 1.25?
1.25, I'm sorry.
Okay.
so just walking us through it. So the original plan had not only the site development, but also had the building expansion and addition. So we're taking that out. This estimate would be just for the site improvements, which would be, thank you for belaboring me for a second, which would be, we probably need to dust that off for a second, but that would be the public space on the corner, would be readjusting the parking out front, redirecting traffic around the back, establishing parking for Cupcake Heaven, having a separate parking area for the police department, also expanding the turn lane on Jefferson, and extending the trail. No?
I think Emily is the best person to answer this because she
Okay.
was a part of it with Mr. Shira at the time, with Katie as well, so.
So that's,
Emily?
that would be helpful, I guess the point of saying, that would be helpful to understand what the extent of what the 1.5 million means.
So,
Before you go there, Emily, let's just take even a further step back.
Okay?
All right. I think when we went through the process, didn't we do an estimate and itemize this previously, like a few years ago?
yes.
Yes. Okay. Couldn't we just take that then and update it to whatever year dollars that we need to update it to?
I don't know, it's going to be that
Yes,
simple.
so,
Okay.
if I can, let me explain. So I met with Katie at the beginning of the month, and I asked her to take our site plan with the bond estimate. I told her what we wanted to do, and it was only the hardscape work. It did not include the building addition. I told her we wanted to leave the site plan as it was approved so that we didn't have to incur more cost on changing it. So she came back to include everything that Marchant just mentioned, nothing that touches the building. We would go ahead and do the curb and gutter in the back, just like we would add the building addition. We just wouldn't put the building up. So she took that with the bond estimate, so the line-by-line item, and she came up with this cost in today's dollar figure, the best she could do with a rough estimate. She is going to put together a full report with all of that information updated, everything that we would need to do. I also asked her to include with this project the turn lane. She's going to give a full report on how, when we looked at them together, you really need to kind of do both of them at the same time, or one right after the other, because this site plan, when you put in a full police parking lot over there and you do the parking the way Cupcake Heaven should have it, you are creating a curb line for the turn lane, but you're not putting a turn lane there. So you're creating the attractive nuisance to drive on the shoulder. So she's saying you really need to go ahead and do both at the same time. The stormwater works to tie them both in together at the same time. Same thing, turn lane, we had that site plan already done, signed with bond estimates in there. She too was looking at that one, updated numbers, what it would come back at. The only one that we were a little unsure of was the park sidewalk. I asked her to take a look at what the linear feet of that would be from the corner of Blight Drive, tying in there to the Baptist Park sidewalk. And I asked her to give us an estimate of what would that look like. What would that look like if we only put a swale in versus doing full stormwater? What's our lowest cost that we can put that sidewalk in without, breaking the bank? So that's the other thing she's going to look at and report back to us on.
And that's the park site.
Yes, and so she said she would be able to get that to us by the end of this week. I did ask her to please touch base with us today. We had this meeting tonight to give us a rough estimate. So
Okay.
that's where we're at.
Question, I'm sorry, go ahead, I'll wait.
And the turn lane she estimated at $750,000.
The turn lane's less than our, okay.
Because
We're
the
doing the other
sidewalk
parts, yeah.
and everything else is included in ours. And so
Okay.
again, that's kind of that twofold to tie them in together.
I'm sorry, the 750 was the southern turn lane as well?
No, that is
Just
only
our-
for our turn
okay.
lane that has been designed and engineered. I also asked her to please report back on what her opinion was if we needed to do both at the same time. She did not believe that we needed to, because we were going to move forward with only doing this side, 2 years ago. So she felt that that still could be completely doable, still very productive for the traffic flow.
Two quick questions. Have we called Miss Utilities or anything to get any utilities marked?
No.
Okay. number one. Number two, with the estimate, with us not knowing for any utility relocations, this estimate could be extremely low.
So right now, there would be no utilities that we know of.
That's why we call Miss Utilities,
Well-
have them come out and I'm just saying, because this is from it's happened to me just 2 weeks ago with one of our projects. If there's utility relocation, that's gonna jack the price way up.
So based on the Jefferson Street turn lane and this project, what the engineering firm did is they located all of the utilities, they engineered to the best of their
Good,
ability
okay.
for those. But as we saw with the pedestrian project, sometimes the gas lines sneak up
Ah.
on you and you find them where you
Yeah.
don't want to, and they're not where they said they were. So that's always, that what if, but right now, the only one that we do not have utilities marked out on and located and designed is the park sidewalk. But the turn lane and this project should hypothetically
Yeah.
all be done.
Well, the good thing is Miss Utilities could come out and they could mark that area,
Yes.
the sidewalk. I mean, doesn't cost us anything. But we can ask them to come out and mark that. At least it'll give us an idea if there's gas lines, electrical, whatever, because we'd have to pay for those relocation. And
Yeah.
that's expensive.
If I recall correctly, I think everything's on the other side of the road.
Is it?
Because I know we ran into that with the original.
So with the digging of the pedestrian project, we did have several lines, but,
No, I meant down at the park. I mean, I think as
Oh,
I
at the park.
recall, everything is across the street.
So
Because we
there-
ran into that when we were doing that phase of the construction.
there is one
I know the
fire,
gas lines
That'd
on
save
that
us
side
a
of the
bunch of
street.
money if it
Yeah.
was.
there is one fire hydrant right at the corner of Blight, so I don't know how that would incorporate it.
Yeah.
And the power lines, yeah.
Well, that's overhead.
Did we ever put out the town center project to bid, or was just we did put the town center project?
Just put out the exterior and the building.
Okay, thank you. My recollection, switching to the park, was when we had estimated it separately from the master park plan. At the time, it was $750,000. There are some inlets that were installed that anticipated the park project. So when you guys go down there, you'll see there's sort of random inlets along the Baptist church side. So I think there's some cost savings there. I guess, Mr. Mayor, sort of prioritizing, certainly, hate to use the term, not hate to use the term, but it's a shovel-ready project in terms of the two major CIP projects. This would seem the most shovel-ready, and also with the hotel coming, and the attraction that this site will have for people to congregate, and for the safety of the tenants, customers, especially Cupcake Heaven, where there's not really a barrier between, the building and the sidewalk and the travel lanes. I think that makes it equally a safety priority that we go after, if we're going to separate it between sort of major projects and lesser projects, that we go after the town center project first.
What's our capital reserve right now?
1.9.
The budget amount?
How much do we have in reserves right now?
Yeah, so I think Roberto and I broke that down the other day, and I believe liquid funds that we would be able to use, like tomorrow, it was about 385,000, give or take.
And it's in an investment account or something? That's everything?
That's the liquid amount that we would be able to get our hands on, like I said, tomorrow if we needed to.
And that's the only reserves we've got?
No,
To overall reserves, I believe 1.9.
1.9.
But like I said, those are not liquid that we can get our hands on, like
But they
tomorrow.
are-
It would take some
Somebody-
time for
That's
us to
okay.
get it to.
That's okay.
But I think they are classified as unrestricted, right? And then, of course, we have to consider our 15%
Yeah.
and take that out of there.
We actually do 30%, sir.
You're absolutely right. So we could make an adjustment. So if we're doing 30%, so back that out of the 1.9.
Emily, would we be doing this in stages? Stormwater first and then coming back and doing the rest of it, or would it all be under one
For which projects? All of them?
for the town
Center?
center thing?
No, it would all be as part of one. I
One
would do
mobilization.
one mobilization. If you can do it, I would do one mobilization for our curb and gutter and parking lot, and then do a second phase being the turn lane,
We
or
need $2 million.
just pick which one can be funded first, or which one Katie thinks should be done first, and the timeline on it. Because, you know, in all honesty, the sidewalk project, should it have taken 6-8 months? No, it should have taken, you know, they thought they were gonna be in and out of here in 6 weeks' time. So I think that gave us a good example of how things can happen.
Mission creep and overrun?
When we say turn lane, does the site plan include the sidewalk, or the turn lane project would include the extension of the 10-foot trail?
So the site plan would include, I will pull it. It is, I will pull it right now if you would like to.
No,
look
no,
at
no,
it.
no, no, I was thinking, because part of the site plan too was not only the curb and gutter, it was the landscaping, it was some other hardscape that was involved with that, so we had the dumpster pad on the back, so, thanks.
It basically, I told her to look at everything on the site plan minus the addition to the building and
Okay.
the elevator.
Great, thank you.
To your point, Marshawn, I think it comes down to a matter of priorities and how we want to do it. Unless we're willing to essentially wipe out our reserves, we can't do it with cash on hand, at least that project, unless you want to pull a bond. In which case, we'll have to have a public hearing for the bond. On the other hand, we can do the engineering for the sidewalk, and potentially the engineering and the construction within 18 months, I'm guessing. Engineering this year,
It just, like I said, with all the.
construction next spring.
The construction and planning and design that people have going on with houses and stuff like that, it just depends on when the availability is going to be here as well.
That's why I'm guessing 18 months.
So, yeah, I mean, like I said, we can look into it. We do have the benefit of the ARP allowing for stormwater infrastructure. So with the curb and gutter and stormwater section, the design and installation of that, essentially it looked like we would probably have to cover the portion of the designing the sidewalk, which is, you know, what,
But by the
5 foot
same
wide?
token, we could use those same ARP funds for the stormwater section of both the turn lane and the
It's just
town
not.
center.
So with the town park sidewalk, it's about 50% of the cost, where for the town center and turn lane, it's not nearly that much.
When you're talking about 1.25 million, or actually $2 million in total, you know, if it's 20%, it's still a significant amount of money.
Agreed. But that's where, it just depends on what you guys want, where the focus is, because of the park sidewalk, if that was something, I know that's something we've discussed a lot about, how I'm reading it, because it just came out today at 1, so we're still looking into it, but if we could do the curb and gutter and the stormwater, the swale like Emily was talking about inside the park, get that designed and installed, and then the town just have to pay for the design of the sidewalk, and in the installation of the sidewalk, it is substantially less. So it just,
And then we could turn around next year, increase our reserve between now and then take next year's ARP funds
and use that for
and
the
use
storm.
that against the stormwater for the town center site. And then you're done with the construction across the street, which may or may not conflict. Does that make sense?
It does, I guess, in my opinion, we got 2 projects, we got to get to the finish line.
Yeah,
And
and
this
I
is a
absolutely
project
agree.
that's ready to get to the finish line, and rather than wait till after, I think we should move ahead on this one first and direct the ARP funding toward the park project.
I don't disagree. I just, the problem that I have is I don't know that we could pull off the town center without a bond.
And we also have 3 loans that are coming to maturity in 2023, or 2 are coming to maturity 2023 and 1 in 2025. So we do still have outstanding
Okay.
bonds
Okay.
that we
Well,
need to pay for.
to put you on the spot, what would you 2 recommend, Roberto and Chris? If you were to have a recommendation on how to, is it split the baby that we just discussed, or go ahead and pull the trigger on one?
So with the ARP funds, as well as what we have in reserves, And with my understanding, council's priority is to try and get some of this stuff accomplished. I think maybe a little bit more investigation, because I think if we could get the engineer to kind of give us an idea of what that turn lane capacity would actually increase. Is it going to increase 5 cars an hour? Is it going to increase 35 cars an hour? You know, that's a big deal to know what that's going to do. And then that'll also give us time to kind of figure out what the design cost, because if the design cost for the sidewalk is going to be $500, I think that's going to substantially change what the recommendation is. But if these numbers are accurate and the, capacity of that intersection doesn't change, I would assume moving forward with the park sidewalk, actually, to get that accomplished. And then we can start moving forward and seeing if we can request the crosswalk installation with VDOT, especially if we have the ADA ramp to cross Washington Street by the park. Because that's a requirement. We have to have ADA ramp to ADA ramp for them to install a crosswalk. So that's something that I think we could try and finish that sidewalk and start that crosswalk section. And then, just like Councilman Weir was saying, that would allow us time to build the reserves, also pay off some more of the bonds, so that would open us up for some more money, as well as that would give time for the hotel to come in, because if the hotel is very successful, that's a new revenue stream that the town has never had before. So if we allocate those funds directly to the town center intersection project, that allows us to get a little bit farther along with that, as well as I discussed with you guys that I would like to try and see if we can reach out to VDOT, Prince William County Transportation, because that's the other thing is Prince William County Transportation and Prince William County got the ARP funds as well. So maybe we can see if they would be willing to participate some stormwater.
And that's the other wild card, which is getting the county involved in some of these transportation improvement projects, because, Pete, if you're listening, God damn it, we pay county taxes here. And we haven't seen a dime of our taxes back for any transportation improvements in town for as long as I can remember.
Understood. So under that recommendation, just important, Mr. Mayor, if that's the consensus of the council, is that we just message that when we do our newsletter in July, that, folks get enamored with the tangible when they start seeing things moving. If we're able to message that and make it clear that, hey, we've seen the same things you've seen, this is how we're funding and supporting those projects, here's the estimated timetable. We're paying off, I would agree, paying off our debts would free up cash. I think the DMV Select would also, if we're able to get some income from that and diversify our revenues rather than just relying on tax. I think all of that, if we're able to message that correctly, I think absent of us actually moving dirt, that would be
I think we get the best bang for our buck for citizens, them seeing that happening at the park. Is that what you're talking about?
Exactly.
And I think we would get the best bang for our buck as far as our citizens are concerned, to see. I mean, I know the comments we got just when we put the playground up there. I mean, and look how much it's used, so.
To that end, should we tell them about the canopy now?
You want to talk about that now?
I'm sorry, the what?
Well, before we get to the canopy, I mean, this
canopy?
is, hang on a second,
There we go.
hang on.
Sorry.
So we've got more homework to do here. I think Chris is absolutely right. I think you have to get some better numbers. You have to get more detail. We have to look at sequencing, timing. We have to look at alternative funding streams, if at all possible. So there's a lot of homework to do here.
Right.
You can't do anything
There
until
is,
July
but-
1 anyway, so.
But for the budget, I think we should be looking at what we can put into the CIP line. I hear, 385, it can be liquidated from the reserves. That should be immediately put into the line. And whatever else we can squeeze. And
Well,
that at least gives us money right up front to start working with.
So right now, we do have $250,000 allocated for the Haymarket Park sidewalk to Blight. So we do have that.
That's simply for the engineering, not for the construction. That's why you see 750 afterwards.
Yeah, and that was an estimate, so we can amend that. But like we said, this is something Katie kind of threw some rough numbers. So with that, the rough numbers, but it is something that we do have budgeted, is the sidewalk to Blight. And then as you go down a little bit, you will see the master plan engineering, which was $75,000.
So, well, to that end, given what her numbers are, If there's no objection, what I would suggest changing the CIP numbers to on the Haymarket Park sidewalk to Blight Drive would be 521 and 522. Just split the baby.
Right.
So 500 and 500.
Is that the consensus of council? 500, so under,
So up from 250 to 500 and down from 750 to 500. And from a CIP standpoint, that should suffice. All right?
Because at 500, we'll be spending,
that's just
This
for
year.
the construction.
right?
Well, it just depends on the engineering and design.
I suspect we're overestimating the engineering
I
cost.
think-
And, yes,
If you're thinking it's 500 to engineer that, yeah, I think.
My guess is it's probably going to be around 2.25.
I'm thinking 30% of the construction cost roughly.
Last estimate, when we originally done it, I think I said this earlier, was 750,000, which was engineering and construction.
Yeah. And now with the increased cost of the materials, the increased
And
engineering
those
costs.
were,
not
what,
millions,
$2017, I think,
Yeah.
2016?
I think we're pretty safe on that. And then we've got, and that way you've got the Jefferson Street turn lane is already factored in for next year at 800,000, which is your engineering fees, and we can change that and almost, we can address that
So-
depending on what ARP funding is available. And we just got the guidance this afternoon.
at 1 PM.
Yeah.
So, and the 800,000, that is for FY '23,
Yeah.
just, yeah. I know we're saying next year, this year, so making sure everybody knows what we're talking about.
And the northbound one, that's something we're gonna have to work on the county with because of the utility relocation and everything else. I don't see any way that we're gonna do that as one project.
Probably not, and that's why we pushed it all the way until 2025, that would be when all of our bonds matured, so we wouldn't have any bonds out there. So then if we needed to get bonds,
Yeah.
we had basically the ability to do so.
Now, on the town center property, given what we're finding out about the estimate, I would suggest we zero it out for this year and put 750 in for 2022, because I don't think we're gonna get there.
Which
This
one
year.
was that, Bob? I'm sorry.
The yellow one, master plan
Okay.
construction.
Okay.
And until we figure out what we really want to do, I mean, because if we're going to combine it with the turn lane, there's going to be some incremental cost savings by doing them together.
Right.
I
Well,
You have a question, Michelle?
No, it's, and we're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves, but on the 2021, 2022 year, I agree with this. I think the town signage should move forward. That's something we can gain from, especially with the hotel coming in. I think that economically, that falls in line, the 15 and the 16,000 respectively.
yeah, I
And
think we can do
we're
that.
discussing that at the ARB pretty quickly. The beautification, I think, is also, I would almost question if we need to bump that up a little bit.
Where's that at?
The first line item, the light post benches, trash cans, and bike racks, do we need
We
a little
actually
bit-
did bump it up at the PC. It's significantly more than it was.
More than 20,000? Okay.
Now, 20,000 is what it was bumped to. It was significantly less than that, as I
It
recall.
was less than that, okay. And then the crosswalk repair, Chris, is that-
Crosswalk repair, do we have any? Which one?
That we need it to be repaired, is that what you're asking?
What are the repairs that we need? Because I'm having a brain fart and I can't remember which ones they were. Because we're getting new ones put in.
So we're getting new ones put in. VDOT currently has a contract that they have put out to bid. It sounds like they've not gotten any bids as of yet. They're gonna come back in and stamp and paint the crosswalks. One of the things, and maybe it should be better labeled, and it wouldn't quite be a crosswalk repair, but is Fayette Street and Washington, completing that to a full crosswalk with all four connected sides. Currently, it's only two.
And we have to pay for those because they're not ADA compliant. So that's what the 50,000 is for.
Because we need
Okay.
to bring up the ramps and the ADA, up to.
Now I'm remembering.
I can make a note section, if that's helpful on here, and jot down some notes of what these line items would entail.
Yeah, and going back to your question about the beautification line item at 20 grand, Marchant, one of the reasons it's set like that and it's significantly lower in the out years for amongst a number of reasons is in years past, apparently maintenance was considered a CIP cost. We have that cost already built into the maintenance budget, and there's no reason to put maintenance in a CIP. Painting a light pole is not a CIP, that's a maintenance issue.
Understood.
So that money's actually accommodated in increased maintenance money, so.
So in terms of the
Placement of flyers.
other low-hanging fruit, I guess we're going to get to the canopy and the park in a second, but the other, the porta-johns we've talked about, but that can fall under a maintenance item.
That's already covered in the regular line items in the budget.
And then
We
I've
talked about-
gotten,
we'll
I've
get to
gotten
that too, yeah.
some feedback about some other interim improvements to the park, grills, other park benches, other sort of low-hanging fruit improvements, and then the canopy that you're talking about.
Basketball court. no.
Would that, would that come under this? Would we need to
I
modify
wanted-
that?
I wanted a paintball range backing the houses on,
Can,
See those improvements just in the town center plan, I guess?
can I ask a question? Because somebody refresh my memory. Where are we doing, or are we piggybacking on the stamped concrete with the hotel? Where is that?
supposed to
Okay.
be bringing us a zoning text amendment, right?
That's a multi-level question, so I'll give you a multi-level answer.
Go for it.
So I owe a zoning text amendment update to the planning commission at the May work session to include the stamped concrete information in there.
As a
Second-
standalone amendment, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Second fold, the hotel owner has asked his contractor to go ahead and provide quotes for what our portion of that would cost, and so we are waiting on him to give us those numbers back. I do not know if they only have a single contractor. I believe they've already contracted it to a single person. So we will get back with you guys once we have that number, and then from there, we will need to find where it'll be budgeted from.
Right, so that could force some adjustments into some of our
To
thinking.
your point, that would increase this line item. That's where it would fall here under the
Possibly,
beautification, okay.
possibly. I'm not sure. We'd have to talk
Our
about that.
portion is just in front of the museum, down to, from Fayette down to,
It takes it from in front of the museum around the curve of Fayette and then.
oh, it does around, okay.
Finishes right there.
Like a big L.
And then depending on the cost, we may also look at doing from Jefferson to Fayette as well, so then this whole block
Right.
would have the stamped concrete right here in the center of town.
Okay.
But that depends on cost and,
Sure.
and what we're looking at.
From Jefferson to Fayette.
On the, I think
On
it's
this
Oh,
side.
on the other side,
On
okay.
the north side.
Yeah.
Okay. So getting back, I mean, so the two changes we've made are 500 and 500 for the Haymarket Park sidewalk to Blight Drive, and then zeroed master plan construction in 21 and increased it to 750 in 22, correct?
Correct.
Yes.
I'm looking at Marchant.
We're moving to the out year, okay.
And Gateway Sun.
And then we would need to add to the Washington Street beautification to anticipate the sidewalk in front of the museum and on Fayette.
We've got that covered elsewhere in the budget, I think.
We better double check.
Yeah, that'll be a TBD.
And then the crosswalk repair, we're leaving as is, or we dropping down?
The stamped concrete.
Crosswalk repair, I think we just leave where it's at.
So
yeah.
the stamped concrete, that's what Emily just said, we're waiting on the contractor to give us a price. So it depends on, if it's a low number, we can incorporate it in the repair and maintenance. If it's a higher number, then we're gonna have to come in front of council and we'll have to discuss it with you guys.
Well, the more we do, the better price we get.
More than likely, less mobilization costs. So,
Exactly.
exactly. And that's where, just depending on the cost per linear foot and how much it would cost for the difference, that's where the decision, we'll bring it to you guys.
And thanks for letting me jump around, Mr. Mayor. So the other park projects, is this where we open up the door on the canopy and the other sort of interim park improvements?
Yep.
You want me to do it, or does
I can
Emily
do it,
want to do
yeah.
it? Okay, so we've
Give them
been,
the good news.
so we've been talking about a way to cover the playground for the kids. Some of the ideas, they just didn't fully accomplish that task. Emily and Chris, they got some details from the original installer of the playground system. Do you have any pictures of that, or?
I'm gonna pull one up. Give me
Good.
just 1 second to forward it to Roberto.
The good news is, we think we have the money in this year's budget to do it, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. That's the good news. The other news, the intermediate news, I'm not going to say bad news, but we need to understand the operating and maintenance of that a little bit more. Because it certainly has limitations, depending on snow and ice and hurricane and what have you, because it's quite large. It would be installed via concrete abutments, essentially footings, concrete footings, reinforced concrete. It would cover the entire area. So they got an estimate, and we'd have to take a look at it a little bit closer, because there was also an additional section for where parents would be sitting. But I think we can get away with not doing that part, because we do have some trees and what have you for shade in those areas, perhaps. That would be it. So if we can pull that up, we'll get a chance to see what it looks like. And we're talking, you know, anywhere from 45 to 50K to get that done.
And that's covering most of the playground?
It's covering the entirety of it, is my understanding.
Okay.
Now,
Somewhere where they have up at James Long Park?
I don't know. I don't know.
It's similar, it's more of a soft structure.
Now, this thing has a 10-year warranty, but, you know, they tend to fade over a number of years, and you have maintenance concerns regarding the cables and what have you. Regularly inspections are necessary.
So,
Go ahead, Emily, I'll let you
And
take
winter
it.
storage.
don't worry,
and-
Marchant, this is not the color. Promise.
I
Won't be
think
bright
so. It'll
blue.
be-
So this is the general
Sky is
design.
blue. Sky is blue.
This is the general design of the shade. It is a softer fabric up here that is stretched over the frame. So that is something that we are looking into more of the maintenance of what it looks like to have this taken on and off each year when the seasonal changes occur. It does take a team of 4 to 5 people. The gentleman was very nice and offered training for our maintenance team.
Yeah,
And unless that's council, you know.
right.
So if I flip over this, if you see this square outline here, I'm kind of putting the mouse on it, that is where the larger shade would go. It would cover the 2 main play equipment pieces. This is where the sun is the most during the day. You have the little swings over here, the tree line is here, and then you have the home here. So this is that other option that Joe had just mentioned about the shade for the parents. We had kind of thought it would be nice to have a little area just outside to park strollers, or for the mom and dads to gather, grandparents to gather while they watch the children play, and give them a little respite out of the sun. However, this is something we can do later on, because we can move some of the picnic tables over here in the tree line. We can put some signs on them to please do not move them, and then that would provide some better shade for those individuals if they're watching.
I might interject, the other
yeah.
thing you've got to recall is that we're also planning on putting a pavilion up there anyway.
Yes, and with the previous council, when we did talk about the pavilion, just so everyone's aware, we were hopeful that the pavilion could kind of butt up against the backside or get relatively close to the backside of the playground, so that you could hang out under the pavilion, watch the kids, there's tables, what have you, just right there. And again, that's wide open and direct sunlight. So,
It's
current
ironic
shade is right there.
that the several, I take my grandkids up there all the time, they love that park. And it's ironic, because every time I'm talking to folks up there, I introduce myself and everything else, and they love the park. This is the one thing that every one of them, every time, they'd said, God, it'd be nice if we had some kind of, the sails or just something to block some of the sun and everything, so.
For the kids or for the parents?
Yeah, Yeah, because
Well,
the
I
kids are gonna play no matter what.
I would
But-
imagine the slides get pretty hot on
Yeah, they do.
their legs.
They do.
Hey, when we were kids, they were made out of steel and they were really hot.
And
they
we got
burn.
burned butts too. So would it, over that, would that just require the 4 posts, or would they require 6 for that size?
So what they've done, so this is the same company I worked with before. They come up with the engineering plans. They do everything they do. Part of the proposal is the certified engineered plans that they give us with everything they need to do. So they are showing that it would only take the 4. It would be a length of 45 feet, a width of 38 feet. The entry height would be 12 feet, and the peak height would be 19.67, and that's going to give plenty of room for the tallest slide structure that you'd have a couple feet between that and the base of the shade.
Okay, good.
So I'm sorry, the initial estimates for this was this
Right at 50 grand.
right at 50?
I'm sorry, what, I missed
Estimates
that.
were around 50, so,
Well, this here would roughly be 46. The additional for the parents would be closer to 6. That would
Well-
include transportation and shipping and all that stuff.
So, yeah,
so before we go,
Because-
so, I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, this is the current total with everything on our wish list, but if you take off about 6,000, it's going to dock a little off of shipping. That's what you'd be
Right.
looking at, as Joe mentioned.
All right.
for the
If we
big one.
were, I'm sorry,
done,
I
I'm done.
keep talking over to you, and I apologize, long day. So if we're moving the 500,000 for the town center property, could we also do, for the town park, in addition to the canopy and those improvements, could we repave the handicap spot, do a better job of delineating the parking up there? We put some wood parking stops that are not working as well, they're starting to get hit. I know we have the disturbance of 2,500 or less, but there is the pad, the old police department handicap spot is still there. So if we're able to do a better job of, go ahead.
Roberto, wouldn't we have that in the current park maintenance budget,
Okay.
I was just going to make
unallocated for this year?
I was going to make a recommendation that when we do that work, that we have somebody come in, bring a little bit more gravel, level it out the right way, get the edges looking real nice. We have a couple spots that are either they have holes, there's too much gravel, just kind of falls off in one area. But do that. I also would recommend a little bit of signage up there for where you can park. Thankfully, we collapsed the septic tank that was still on site when Jerry was here. But a lot of people park in the grass behind the Blight Drive homes, and like I said, better delineation of parking, but I think that could include some signage as well.
So could that be, I'm sorry.
Well, and then I just had one question. So you had said pave the handicap spaces, but would council be amenable to like the plastic mats, like the parking mats? So it's a little bit more stable than the gravel, but this way it avoids us having to pave like a small section.
So this was just the one spot that's already up there, just
Okay.
delineating the one spot that's there and marking it as handicap spot, and then level off behind it to put the handicap.
Yeah,
I assume if we get a porta-john, it's gonna be one of the handicap porta-johns. So have that all sort of congregated, and then that's already flat, and they can move over to the picnic area, and we could put the handicap parking thing area. So just, the suggestion would be do that all at the same time, just put the canopy up, do the modest improvements to the park site.
We need to get a number for that.
So, but if we can accomplish it under the maintenance, that would be great too, but.
And that's, yeah, because we do have the, that structural system for under the park building is still at the county right now, getting reviewed. But we do have some funds that would be available for the repair and maintenance.
And it's under 25,000 square feet, so, you know,
So the
we
gravel,
don't have to pull a permit for it, so
2,500?
2,500.
the gravel that's there was a high school, was a green Earth Day project.
Yeah,
That's
so-
probably a little rough.
You just want to pave that pad site right
Yep,
there,
or at
correct?
least not repave it, delineate it. I think when we closed up the foundation of the house, we sort of went everywhere. So if there's an ability to regrade that, or at least better delineate it, and if we got to add some,
You could put those green mats
Did
in, couldn't you? And we don't have to deal about stormwater then?
Right.
and then
So-
putting some, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say, what we can do is we can try and get some, we do have an individual that helped grade all the back of Town Hall, and he did give us some numbers for doing a couple different options at the playground. So what we can do is we can see if he can come out and see what it would cost for him to clear that specific section. And then we can get the quotes. We had some numbers from Bucky about the Porta-John, but we just need to get with
Can
him
he
to.
drag the parking lot as well?
So that's where the gravel guy, I'm wondering if we could have him drag it as well as clear the asphalt section for the handicap, and then maybe see if him or somebody else could almost do some of the painting on the gravel to kind of help delineate, even if it's, just a couple, like a foot or two, so people kind of have an area where they can aim to park. So we can try and get prices for all those different things.
You guys did a good job of citing it, because that handicap spot is right by the ramp to get into the handicap equipment and all that area, so that's a prime spot to sort of have that level area and get people in and out, so.
And instead of repaving, if it's in good shape, latex it or slurry. That'll prolong the life, and it's a heck of a lot cheaper to put a latex, which is just liquid asphalt.
Right.
That's what we do on a lot of roads. and they
Crushing road,
prolong-
what's that, what's the
like-
term for that?
Pardon?
It's like oil and chip.
Tar and chip? Yeah, tar and
No,
chip.
no, tar and chip's different, totally different. That's a surface treated. But
This
this,
is
a
a-
latex is just a liquid asphalt. They come in, it's cleaned off. They put it on top. It looks like it's just got re-asphalted.
I'll warn everybody ahead of time, you're going to see this at the June meeting, correct? As the canopy and this Porta-John for allocation of funds from this year's.
Right.
So,
Okay, if we could do a sketch plan, I know we're putting a lot on you guys, but maybe the consensus, if we could do a sketch plan of the canopy, a sketch plan of some interim improvements that we can fund.
I just want to get the appropriation
Yep.
done in June,
Yep.
so it's off of this
Yep.
year's funding.
Right.
And we don't
And the
have to
sketch plan
screw
being
around with
some
moving it.
modest, gravel, the
Yeah.
asphalt area, the.
And that's something we can
Porta-Johns.
have done for the season, too.
Okay,
The only thing is, for them to construct it, we'll have to find out, will it disrupt the usage there? It probably will,
It
when they
probably-
do the footings.
It probably would for just a little bit, but I'm sure we can schedule something that's not too disruptive.
Right.
One other comment, just real quick, so you guys know, Katie will be here June 1st at that work session, so
Good.
jot down some questions for the other discussion we had on site plans. She'll be
Right.
here to answer.
Well, hopefully, we can get that report in advance, and then we can go
Yeah,
through
as
it.
soon as I get
Absolutely.
that report, I will send it to you guys, so you have all that full information.
Yeah.
Everything.
The other thing, just one more thing, Marchand, the operation and maintenance side of this has some concern for me, but I think we're okay there too, because when we were discussing it, the take up and put down, whatever,
Wasn't too egregious, as I recall.
well, yeah, we need to get a better sense of it. I mean, it's going to have to come down for the season, but there are also situations over the summertime, it may have to come down depending on the type of a storm we're getting. So we'll have to consider that as well, but we think we can capture that in the maintenance side of the budget.
And since the mayor and I have bad backs, we'll be the two supervisors in the emergency circumstance. And the 4 remaining XY chromosome people will be handling the
Got a
takedown.
bad shoulder here. So.
No, 3,
got
we're
the
down to 3, that's you, Marchant, that's Marchant, Joe. Now, Joe's
There's a-
old, so it'll be Marchant and Chris.
There's a gentleman in Mexico. You have one more.
Yeah, high winds, it would have, it's like
That's the
a
under 50 crowd? So-
Hurricane 1 or greater.
Mr. Mayor, thanks for
It would have to
belaboring
come
this a little bit more. I've gotten a lot of feedback about the park, that's why a lot of this is on my mind. We never finished the lighting discussion. I remember there was a painful discussion last year about lighting, so maybe some security lighting, if you have some recommendations about that, but that could probably be under maintenance. And
So-
then,
Can
Did
you
we
just
have a sodium halide light on the garage at one point in time?
We did, and we did have some discussions, and there was a little bit of community feedback that doing lights up there was more disruptive to the residents because a lot of their bedrooms back up to the park.
okay, so what we had was fine, okay. And then the last thing is landscaping. So when the Blight homes were, correct me if I'm wrong, when the Blight homes were constructed, they put in some landscaping along the perimeter. Is that in need of any maintenance or any installation of any dead or dying vegetation? Do we want to start putting more vegetation along the backside?
It
So
never
we-
reached the level of the opaque screen it was supposed to, let's put it that way.
So
And
we
that's been
can,
brought up by, I know Nick, multiple times because of people cutting across from the playground or the cookies and cream or whatever over and cutting through their yards.
I do believe, so, knock on wood, I have not had any complaints since that
Good.
year. It was pretty bad the first year, but I've not had any complaints. That row of 5 houses did a good job of coming together and making it known you couldn't cut through their yards. As for the landscaping, typically what we do is we kind of take a little peruse through there, we see what needs to be done. Our premier landscapers, they come out, they let us know when they see stuff, and then we just handle that through the maintenance budget that Roberto has.
I guess the question for council is, do we want to revisit maybe enhancing that?
Next
Buffer.
year, yeah, absolutely. I'm
Fencing it with
fully
some
on board
more-
with you on that.
I'm sorry,
I'm fully on board with you on that. I think we
next
do.
year?
Yeah.
Okay,
And by next year, I mean
This
July or August.
And
Okay.
if you get ahead of it, you can do planting season in the fall, if you were that actively ready.
so for that, will we need to, could Premier our landscaper advocate, do like a landscape proposal or a landscape plan? Okay, could
We would definitely have to get multiple, because that would definitely go
Yeah.
over the
I think,
threshold.
one-
Okay.
I think one of the other things that we're gonna have to do, and maybe you and I should go out and walk it, but we're gonna have to make a determination as to just how far you wanna set it back from the existing quote-unquote screen/buffer. Because
I think what happens-
if you start punching it up against their stuff, depending on what you put in,
Okay,
And really by their stuff, I think you mean our stuff.
Yeah,
That's
our
also-
stuff.
So maybe we just look to better expand their stuff and make it a wider, instead of, say, call it a 20-foot, instead of 20-foot, make it a 50-foot buffer. and
Or if you
put
want-
some more evergreen.
or if you wanted to discourage, foot traffic between the houses, put up essentially a low barrier type bush all the way across. It would take some time to mature into that, but,
so the idea is that a lot of the plants that were put in by Mr. Gorman,
yeah.
just, it was hot during the summer when they put them in, a lot of them died.
Yeah.
And so now there's not really a consistent hedge or
Screen,
buffer.
yeah.
So I look at it as kind of a 3-prong. We do landscaping as one prong, the sidewalk is another prong, the shade and some of the inner improvements is another sort of prong, word of the night, and then divide it up that way. But I think the screening would be more of opacity and more privacy.
Yeah.
And then at maturity, they can start to create that sort of natural separation and
We may
boundary.
actually, at some point in time, we may actually have to address that on the backside of the property as well, depending
I
on.
was thinking both. That was my impression, was do both along Blight and along, we have some mature landscaping along Blight, the property line, but the one along the back was what I was thinking as well.
Especially with the number of trees we've lost back there over the years.
So thank you for indulging me on
And the
that.
complaints we've had on lighting and stuff all came from Blight, nobody else. But,
No, I
That's-
mean, there were complaints in the past from the first 3 houses on the backside. Maybe even the first 4 houses,
Yeah.
particularly when we used to have truck deliveries to the garage.
Right. yeah. Well, they were talking about motion detector. Do we have motion detector lights up there?
We used to.
We don't now?
I don't believe that they're currently on. I think that was part of the issue, is we had, maybe the bulbs were changed out to LED, and then they were also motion detect. So if a rabbit went by or squirrel, like, they were coming on constantly, and so there was a little bit of light pollution happening, for the back of
Well,
those houses.
that's all part of where you train it, you would think. If you train it higher up on the equipment.
We can reinvestigate. Lewis Sublet is typically our electrician that we get bids from, and he came in with a whole plan. It was a little bit pricey, but it was putting safety lighting in on all the points of the buildings.
Then it's how do you shield the light, and where do you point it, and
When you guys leave,
directional lighting and all that wonderful crap.
when you leave tonight, take a look at the light above our door. It's a pretty nice downward facing deflecting light that goes straight down versus out, so you might take a look at something like that.
Not that we would do it. you can actually get the heat sensor lights. They're not that much more expensive. And what they do on those, they set them so that like a temperature of, us humans is a lot less than a deer or rabbits and stuff like that. And so the heat detects it, and that's what actually turns it on. They're a little bit more expensive, but ultimately, if we want some type of light source up there, the only thing that we talked about in the last council too was we just have to be careful because we don't want people going up there at 9 o'clock at night. The park's supposed to be off limits anyway, right at dark. So, and that was what Nick brought up and a couple of others, is that they don't want the kids, because they'll find somewhere since we're boarding up the houses and stuff, they need somewhere to go to, so.
We've had some issues with less than fully clothed individuals in the park at night, so.
Okay, moving on. So, anyway, thank you for.
Well, I mean,
That's
I'm
all I
just
have on the
from a
park.
light standpoint, I mean, it's a damned if you do and damned if you don't.
Yeah.
I mean, because I don't want to revisit the whole fiasco when the streetlights got put in Green Hill, and then, it's coming through my bedroom window, it's turning on and off, it's waking me up, it's too bright, it's not bright enough, you put in too many of them,
I think the easiest solution, right now, they have motion sensors on the side of the house.
yeah.
If you're right in front of the house, it sets it off. Just have the maintenance folks
Point 'em.
point them, check the sensitivity, and
Sure.
we're great.
The garage, you mean, not the house, right?
No, this is the lights on the house, so. There's
Oh,
lights on the house
okay.
right now, it's just
Okay.
their sensitivity is off.
I didn't, on the, okay, I didn't realize they were still on there, okay.
Okay.
Okay. Any more comments, questions?
Well, with that, I would suggest we direct staff to publish the amended CIP and budget ASAP. For what hearing date?
Can we do it on the 7th? We have plenty of time, right?
Can you have can you do it for the 7th? And that way we can,
Consolidate.
we just can't adopt it the 7th, and it's
Right.
got to be at
But-
least 7 days, right?
So we could have the public hearing for the June regular meeting, and
Right.
then we could adopt it along with the fourth quarter budget amendments at the June 28th meeting.
There's no way to make it for the 1st, correct?
So,
You would have had to have the. Because I'm
because,
just thinking from a.
so we'll be able to advertise the 17th, it'll be in the newspaper by the 20th.
The 20th and the 27th, but does that meet the requirement for a meeting on the 1st, since we've already
So-
got one scheduled?
So we could plan a public hearing probably for the June 1st work session.
Can we make that work?
But then the whole you
But
have
then
to
you're
wait
working
7
on- Then you
days.
got to deal with Memorial Day, yeah, okay.
So you have
Okay,
the
I
7
get it.
days, so that's,
Let's do the 7th.
so if we
Yeah,
advertise, if
just
we
go with the
advertise on the
7th.
20th for the June 7th regular meeting will be the public hearing, and then this way, council, if you guys want to have a special meeting, you absolutely could do that
Or we just wait till the end of the
7
month.
days later, so you could do it the 14th or later, or you could just wait till June 28th, and we'll do the fourth quarter budget amendments, because we'll probably have something for you guys at the June regular meeting as well.
And
Then
just
you
do
could
it at the
the
last possible moment on June 28th.
Exactly, and this way, if anything major changes.
Right, you got time.
We could mark it up at that point, and
And we may have to do a budget amendment if it's more than 1%,
I
but
like
we,
I like the idea of doing it on the 7th, because people are used to the regular meeting.
I just hate finishing it up that late in the
I
year,
know.
but
if you guys, like I said, if you guys wanted to, you could do a special meeting on the 14th. So you, or the 21st.
Of June.
of June.
So I mean, that's something, it's just with the advertisement of the public hearing, you have to wait the 7 days after that. So that's up to you guys what you want to do. So it is scheduled for the 28th, but like I said, that's up to you guys, how you want to do
It's
it.
the unfortunate part about getting some of these numbers so late, is being hung up by whether or not we're gonna get the freaking COVID monies, which is still gonna put us in a jam unless we get them after July 1.
Exactly.
Which
So,
believing is what's going to actually be the case. I don't think we're going to get it in June, May or June, but I could be
And-
wrong.
And did I read that guidance correctly? Is it coming from the state
Yes.
rather than
Yes.
the feds directly? Yes?
Well, I mean, that's the other, it's tangential, but that's the other thing. In order for it to be dispersed by the state, the General Assembly has to meet in special session to they've already appropriated it, but they haven't allocated it yet.
Well, and that's what I'm still looking into, but, so as I reported before, we did fill out the DUNS number, and we got that, and you need that number to request the SAM number, which we have requested that, so we're waiting to get the SAM number, because you need both of them
Right.
to be able to move forward with either requesting or receiving the funds. So there's still a couple stuff
But there's
back end.
there's a higher level issue in that the state treasury can't issue us the check until they're given the allocation authority by the General Assembly, which they didn't handle. They did the appropriation, but not the allocation part of it, is my understanding.
And I'll have.
And there's no effort to do that so far, from what I understand.
So I'm still looking into that part, but my main focus is making sure that the town, we have done everything in our power to make sure we're ready to receive those funds whenever we're able to. So that's what, we're waiting on this one number, and then we should be good to go. So, like I said, we can advertise, and if council would like, what we can do tomorrow too is just verify, because I do want to check with the state code to verify the timeframes, because I think it's advertised, and then at least 7 days later, you can have the public hearing, and you have to wait 7 days.
I'll tell you what it says. Hang on a second.
And that was the last question that we did have, is with all the discussion of the CIP, we are not intending on moving any reserve funds to cover CIP items.
Not this year, yeah. Let's
So not
see.
this, like, not this fiscal year, or not in, before July 1 of 2021?
Counties, cities, and towns.
I would say that if we get the, what's the acronym for the monies?
ARP?
ARP, that would accelerate, I would assume.
I guess that's true, because if
Yeah.
we use the ARP for some of that, we wouldn't necessarily need to use
Strips,
reserves
yeah.
for everything.
Ah,
what generally is
establishment
the-
funds,
While you're looking that up, Councilman, thank you, Mr. Mayor, sorry. Generally,
publication
the best
index.
practice is, how much do you keep in reserve?
15%?
15%? And
That's
where-
like
30.
We have 30.
We have 30, okay.
Yeah, we have 30. Just because the size of our town and because of the amount of revenues we don't charge versus the other ones, we were recommended by VML to go ahead and keep 30.
It was recommended, go ahead and keep 30, okay, thank you.
All right, here's the section. A brief synopsis of the budget, which except in the case of the school division budget shall be for informative and fiscal planning purposes only, shall be published once in a newspaper having general circulation in the locality affected, and notice given of one or more public hearings at least 7 days prior to the date set for the hearing, at which any citizen in the locality shall have the right to attend, state his views thereon. Any locality, blah, blah, blah. The hearing shall be held at least 7 days prior to the approval of the budget. So yes, it's got to be a minimum of 7 days.
Okay, so pull the.
But it only requires one publication. I thought it required two.
So yes, so if we get it into the newspaper, if we really try, and Kim pulls out a favor, we may be able to get it into the newspaper the 13th. But still, the work session is going to end up being
It's 6
the
days, so
first.
it doesn't matter, so.
Well, no, so the work session is going to end up being June 1st because of Memorial Day. So you still couldn't. So unless council, you guys wanted to have a special meeting, because you could do a special meeting the 21st through the 28th of May, if you wanted to have that public hearing. But that goes where Joe said, normally the public hearing is held at the regular meeting.
We can cross that bridge on the 7th.
Okay, and then wait, go to June, go down one to June.
Yeah. I mean, I hate like hell waiting till the 28th.
Well, so that's where it allows, you guys would be able to do it, I'd have to verify with Martin, but I think it would end up being the 15th through the 30th. Because, yeah, the 7-day rule, you can't count the 7th and the 14th, so it'd have to be, yeah, the 15th to the 30th, you guys could have a special meeting, but we do have one meeting scheduled for the 28th.
All right.
So as of right now, we'll go ahead and have it tentatively scheduled for the 28th for the budget adoption and the fourth quarter amendment, and we'll have the fourth quarter amendment at the June 7th meeting as well. Hopefully, we'll have the numbers to discuss at the June 1st work session and the June 7th, but yeah, so the 28th, the main focus will be the fourth quarter amendment as well as adopting FY 2022 budget and CIP.
Any objection to that directive?
Actually, I think that makes a lot of sense. Because it gives us more time, too, for any other adjustments.
May? Yes. May 28th.
So write down June 7th and June 28th.
Work session.
On a Friday?
No, that's May 28th?
No,
June,
28th.
okay, June, I was gonna say, yeah. That's
28th
Monday,
on
yeah, that's a
Friday.
Monday.
What?
That was-
Yeah, so this is just a reminder for you guys that the town council work session for the June meeting is actually going to be June 1st. Because of Memorial Day that Monday, we're pushing it back one day. And then the 7th, which will end up being still the first Monday of the month, will be the
First meeting.
June meeting, regular meeting. And that's when we'll do the public hearing for the budget. And then the 28th will be the work session, which is regularly scheduled.
Boy, that calendar really does work against us this year, doesn't it?
Yes.
Interesting.
Thank you for indulging us. We talk a lot, so I appreciate you guys handling our conversations well.
Who took the bed at 2 hours?
We did. Well,
I got any motions for adjournment, or?
So moved.
Second. Thank you, folks.
We have adjourned.
meeting